Namaste and good morning, everyone. Let's start the class with some prayers. Om Parthaye Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayan Swayam Vyasen Grathitam Puran Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Ritvashine Bhagavati Mashtadashadhyayane Am Tvam Anusandhami Bhagavad Gita Bhavatveshine नमो अस्तुते व्यास विशाल बुद्धे फुल अरविंद आयत पत्र नेत्र येन तव्या भारत तैल पूर्णः प्रज्वलितो ज्ञान में प्रदीपः प्रपन्न पारी जाताये तोत्र वेत्र एकपानये ज्ञान मुद्राये कृष्णाय गीता अमृत दुहे नमः सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोगदा गोपाल नंदना पार्थो वत्सा सुधीर भोगता दुग्धम गीता अमृतम महत वसुदेव सुतम देवम कंस चानूरमर्दनम देवकी परमानंदम कृष्णम वंदे जगद्गुरुम भीष्म द्रोण तटा जयद्रथ जला गांधार नीलोत्पला शल्य ग्रावती कृपेन वाणी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थाम विकर्ण घोर मकरा दुर्योधन अवर्तने सो तीर्ना खलु पांडवै रन नदी के वर्तका केशवा पाराशरे वत्सरो जमलम गीता अत्कंधोटकम नानाख्यान केसरम हरिकथा संबोधन अबोधितम लोके सज्जन षटपदय रह पेपिये मानम मुदा भूयाद भारत पंकजम कलिमल प्रध्वंसी न श्रेयसे मूकम करोति वाचालम पंगुम लंघ्यते गिरिम यत्कृपातमहं वंदे परमानंद माधवम यम ब्रह्म वरुण इंद्र रुद्र मरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यस्तवे वेदै सांग पद क्रमोपनिषदै गायन्ति यम सामगा ध्यानवस्थि तद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यम योगिनो यस्यन्तं न विदुषुर असुरगणा देवाय तस्मै नमः. Let's open our books towards the end. We ended our last week class with verse number 73, because in the previous verse Lord Krishna is asking Arjuna a question. But have you understood what I'm trying to tell you? And Arjuna is saying in verse number 73 that destroyed is my delusion. Nashta moha. And when the delusion is destroyed, he says, I have now gained my memory, the knowledge. Because we always make decisions based upon our knowledge, buddhi. But then he adds there, he says, through your grace. Okay? So it's not just the information or the knowledge alone, but he says your grace also. That's why my ignorance has been dispelled. I am firm, my doubts are gone, I will do according to your word. Okay, so he says, I will listen to you now. You remember that in the beginning, he said, I am not going to fight. So now let's see where the story is taking us. You remember it started out Dhritarashtra, the blind king, asking Sanjay, his charioteer, what is happening there in the war zone? Now Sanjay is telling his king that iti aham vasudevasya parthasya cha mahatmana samvadam imam ashrosham adbhutam rom harshanam. Iti means thus, aham I, vasudevasya of Vasudeva, parthasya of Partha, cha means and, mahatmana high souled. Samvadam dialogue. Imam this, shrosham I have heard. Adbhutam wonderful. Rom harshnam which caused the hair to stand on end like a goosebump. So he says, I have heard this wonderful dialogue between Vasudeva and the high-souled Partha. And Partha is Arjuna. Vasudeva is Lord Krishna, which causes the hair to stand on end. So 18 chapter long Gita, we know it's a portion of Mahabharata, the epic. And this part is in Bhishma Parva. So this Gita portion, we know when the war was starting, the Rishi Vyas, who's the father of Dhritarashtra also, he came over there. He was, because he's a avatar, he could bless. He said, I am going to give you the eyes to see what's happening in that war zone. But Dhritarashtra said no. He was too afraid to see what's happening because internally he knew. Whenever you do something wrong, part of you know. So he said no. So instead, Sanjay, the charioteer, got that blessing. And charioteer could see and hear also, sitting in that carpeted place inside that palace. So that's why he says, I have heard the wonderful dialogue between these two. And he is calling Arjuna Mahatma. Arjun. Lord Krishna is Lord Krishna. He doesn't need any titles. So he's glorifying Arjun because Arjun came out of his mental confusion. First he said, I'm not going to fight. He had all those questions, but now he says, my confusion is gone. My delusion is gone. I will do as you say. It's almost like when a child resists, but when he comes to his senses and does the right thing, we congratulate the child. We pat the back of the child, not the parent or the teacher. This is what is happening over here. So for the confused Arjun to understand the philosophy and heroically walk out of his confusion is definitely an achievement worthy of appreciation. That's what we see over here. And another thing I want to clarify over here, this Rom Harshanam, the last term. So why Sanjay is saying that I have goosebumps on my body? When we look at the Bhagats, the devotees, in the devotional ecstasy, there are some symptoms in the body. According to our scriptures, there are 8 symptoms. Body can become very still, stupefied, motionless, can't even move your own hand or the feet. That's called stamp. Body starts to sweat, or there could be hair standing on end. That's a Rom Harshanam. Voice gets choked. You start to tremble. Face can look ashen. Tears will shed from your eyes non-stop. And you could faint also. These are the 8 symptoms in the devotional ecstasy can happen. And to Sanjay, what is happening? Rom Harshanam. He says, I'm thinking about it. I heard the Vasudeva, and I see what Arjun is saying, the whole dialogue. So in his own height of ecstasy, he's saying it. And now in the next verse, we see that he is acknowledging his the grace which Vyas gave him also. He says, Vyas prasadat shrutvan etat guhyam aham param yogam yogeshwarat krishnat sakshat kathyata swayam. Vyas prasadat, through the grace of Vyas. Rishi Vyas. Shrutvan, I have heard. Etat this guhyam secret, aham I, param supreme. Yogam yoga, Yogeshwarat, from the Lord of Yoga. Krishnat, from Krishna. Sakshat, directly. Kathyata, declaring. Swim, himself. Because somebody can question, how is it possible for Sanjay to know all this? So he is telling us. He says, through the grace of Vyasa. He doesn't say that I have special powers. I can do whatever I want to do. No, he says, through the grace of Vyasa. I have heard this supreme and most secret yoga directly from Krishna, the Lord of Yoga, himself declaring it. Okay, so when did he get this grace from Rishi Vyas? Before this great battle started, right from the beginning. So he is so grateful to Shri Vyas for having given him this wonderful chance of listening. Supreme and most profound yoga. So Sanjay is in this verse mentally prostrating to the incomparable sage, the author of Mahabharata. So we can see that a person who can give a grace like that, you think he was not watching? He was sitting in the jungle and watching it too. What was happening? He was listening also. That's why he could write all this too. And so were many other yogis too. This is a vibhuti mentioned in Yoga Darshan. Yogis have that. There are many vibhutis, many powers yogis have. So directly from Krishna himself, Yogeshwarat Krishnat. Because Sanjay, being a charioteer, never heard the philosophy of Upanishads ever before. It was a novelty, it was a revelation that really stunned him. That's why his joy, we see that in these verses, because he had a chance to listen to the eternal knowledge directly from the Lord of Yoga, Shri Krishna, Sakshat, from his own sacred lips. Here also we can see how Sanjay is sincerely trying to make that blind king Dhritarashtra realize that this Krishna is not just a son of Devaki, it is a Lord himself who has revived Arjuna, who is serving his devotee as his charioteer. So he is reminding blind king to change your mind. But as we see, as we know, he did not. He was not only physically blind, mentally and intellectually blind. Next verse. So all these verses are spoken by Sanjay now. Rajan samsamritye samvadam imam adbhutam keshav arjunyo punyam harishyami cha muhu muhu. Rajan, O king, samsamritye, having remembered, and again it's repeated, samsamrityam, having remembered, samvadam, dialogue. Imam, this, adbhutam, wonderful. Keshav arjunyo, between Keshav and Arjuna. Punyam, holy. Harishyami, I rejoice. Cha means and, muhu muhu. Again and again. He says, O king, remembering this wonderful and holy dialogue between Keshav and Arjuna, I rejoice again and again. The spiritual experience which gave him happiness, it was far more thrilling and satisfying than any joy or happiness he ever experienced. So that's why he says, I am rejoicing, that kind of a happiness. Reflecting upon it, remembering it, because it's such a wonderful dialogue, I'm feeling blissful. So this is a Sanjay's reactions to his listening to the Lord's song. Even the worldly things, when something good happens to us, we think about it again and again. We go back into our memory bank. We rejoice it. Over here, this is something which is beyond his imagination. The words, not only the words, he even saw the vision also. If you remember that when Arjuna was seeing the Virat Roop, Sanjay was also seeing the Virat Roop. So that vision created an impression in his heart so deep and striking. That's why he says, I am rejoicing again and again. That is a thrill of joy. That is a harsham. So indirectly again, Vyas is prescribing the method of study of the Bhagavad Gita. It has to be read again and again. This is not a novel which we read it and put it away or give it to somebody. Again and again, we need to read it repeatedly. We need to reflect upon it. Continuously, we got to remember it until the inner person in us is completely re-educated in the way of life that Lord Krishna has charted out for us. How to live, how to do your duties, how to detach from this temporary and attach to the permanent. How to do the selfless service, what selfless service really means. Only then we can rejoice. We can rejoice only then when we come to recognize a definite purpose in life. And study of Bhagavad Gita gives us that purpose. Why do we exist? Why did we come into this beautiful human body? Bhagavad Gita gives us a very positive message of hope and cheer. Gita is an infinite fountainhead of inspiration and joy. That's why it is studied all over the world. It provides our mind with a systematic scheme of re-education so that we can discover the secret power in ourselves and how to tackle intelligently whatever is happening, whether it's a chaos or a calm outside. So that's why read and reread. That's what Sanjay is telling us. He says, remembering this wonderful and holy dialogue between Keshav and Arjun, I rejoice again and again. Because some people think that we're going to just listen to Bhagavad Gita on our deathbed. No. No, that's not the time. This is the time. Right now is the time. Next verse, 77. Tat cha samsamritye rupam ati adbhutam hare. Vismayami mahan rajan harishyami cha puna puna. Tat means that, cha means and, samsamritye, having remembered. Rupam, the form. Ati adbhutam, the most wonderful. Hare, of Hare. Vismaya, wonder. Me means my, mahan, great. Rajan, O king. Harishyami, I rejoice. Cha means and, punah punah, again and again. Remembering and again remembering that most wonderful form of Hari. Great is my wonder, O king. So when he says, O king, he is talking to Dhritarashtra, O king. And I rejoice again and again. So not only the words of Lord Krishna, he says, even the form of Hari. So again, in that Vishwarup Darshan, if you remember, that was it. Chapter number 9. It is that form that is indicated here by Sanjay. Or chapter 11, I'm sorry, chapter 11. So to such a devotee, when we can remember God all the time, not just the name, the form also, what really happens? That means whether it's a heat and cold, whether it's a joy or sorrow, we know that it's just a play of Lord. Whether we are being honored or dishonored, we think these are just teasing jokes of this world. Because a devotee of this level is recognizing everywhere the harmony of the oneness. Because that's what Arjun saw. No place where God is not. And Sanjay saw that too. They could not see where it starts and where it ends and where is the middle. Everywhere only God and only God. That was a Lord's cosmic form. Once you have witnessed that, once a devotee has really gone into that, the heart of a devotee dances in joy. No matter what is happening outside, heart is dancing. There's a thrill, there's a joy. And this is what Sanjay is talking about. He says, my heart is intoxicated with the embrace of love. And that's how the devotees, they get inspired. The head was also thrilled to get all that knowledge, but the heart was full of love. Now, in the last verse, he's summarizing the whole Bhagavad Gita actually for us. Let's see what kind of a message we get. Yatra Yogeshwaraha Krishna, Yatra Partha Dhanurdhara, Tatra Shri Vijaya Bhuti Dhruva Niti Mati Mama. So again, Sanjay is saying that. Yatra, wherever. Yogeshwaraha, the Lord of Yoga, Krishna. Yatra, wherever. Partha, the Arjuna. Dhanurdhara, the archer. Tatra, there. Shri means prosperity. Vijay means victory. Bhuti means expansion. Dhruva. Dhruva means firm, steady. Niti, policy. Mati, mam. Mati means conviction. Mam means mind. Wherever is Krishna, the Lord of Yoga, wherever is Parth, the archer, there are prosperity, victory, happiness, and firm policy. This is my conviction. So again, this is the closing verse of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Altogether, there are 701 verses in Bhagavad Gita, 18 chapters. So this is the last verse in the last chapter. So Krishna, the Lord of Yoga. Lord of Yoga, it can be invoked within each one of us. Through any one of the yogic technique expounded in Bhagavad Gita. Karam Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga. The Lord is sitting right here inside us. But we have to, it's always there, but we ignore it. We don't pay attention to it. So we have to remember it, recognize it. So the Krishna, the Lord of Yoga, and Arjuna ready with his bow. You remember Arjuna threw the bow down. That means the instrument of effort and achievement, that is the bow. But now he picked it up. He is ready with his bow. He is no more idle, but he was a willing readiness to use his faculties to brave the challenges of life. That is Partha. Partha with bow. So how do we live? Do we recognize who we are, the Atma? Are we ready to face all the challenges, do our duties? This is Sanjay saying. So it's like a symbolism of a way of life he is giving us. He is reinforcing this idea of spirituality, which we need to understand. But at the same time, he says, don't just sit idle. You got to be ready to exert and pour your energy into the endeavors, whatever you have taken. So in other words, the spirituality can be lived in life. The true spiritual understanding is an asset to a human being engaged in the battle of life. Every day we have to get up, do our duties. That's a battle of life. Today's confusions in society makes a person helpless. We think we are insignificant. Because we don't look at both sides. That's why, in spite of all the achievements in science and mastery over matter, we feel helpless. We have not learned how to blend these together. Bhagavad Gita teaches us a happy blending of the sacred and the secular. That is a Krishna and Arjuna he's talking about. That is the policy for us all being advised in the Gita. So the spiritual and the material values are happily wedded to each other. We don't need to ignore our duties. We don't need to ignore the material prosperity. But do not ignore the spirituality either. Because mere material production can no doubt bring an immediate flood of wealth into the pocket of a human being. But that alone will not give us peace and joy in our heart. Prosperity, worldly prosperity, material prosperity without peace within is a calamity. It is gruesome. It is terrible. Mere spirituality without material exertion and secular achievements will not make life dynamic. So we got to have both of them. And even in the arrangement of these terms, prosperity, success, expansion, and sound policy, there is an undercurrent logic behind it. In the context of modern times, political experiences, we know that without an intelligent and steady policy, no company can lead, no government can lead towards the substantial achievement. And with a sound policy, expansion of all the dormant faculties in the community can be brought out. Only then we can say that there is a sustained success. Enduring prosperity must be that which arises from successful endeavor. And that should be the result of a cooperative and loving effort. That needs to be nourished, nurtured, guarded, protected by an intelligent and sound policy. So it's a very deep terms he's talking about over here. And this is how our life should be lived. We can see that if our senses are not in control, if our mind is not disciplined, if we have not trained ourselves to think independently and clearly, we'll be lost. So this is what he's telling us towards the end. Live a life based upon the policies, based upon the teachings of Lord Krishna given in this Bhagavad Gita. So we got to learn how to do the synthesis of both the spiritual knowledge, how to make our character, how to bring the calmness in our mind, how to have that dynamic love for God and see the God in everybody else also. So that's what he kept saying, the service to the mankind and be ready to sacrifice. He not only talked about it, his whole life was like that, Lord Krishna's life. He demonstrated it. That's why God comes into a human form to demonstrate, to encourage us, to show us. And this is what over here Sanjay is saying towards the end of this discourse. We all know service in the world is the highest prayer actually. And loving the people around us is the greatest devotion. People around us. Sometimes it's easy to love people far away, but the people around us, that is the devotion. So let's end this here with the Shanti part. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vishishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you so much.